Welcome in to Bearing Up at Night. I am in Houston, Texas on my brocation with my brother, Dylan Bruce.
Yeah. Hey.
Welcome to the show, Dylan.
Appreciate it.
You were the first guest on Bearing Up at Night.
Really?
Ever.
All right. Awesome.
You were going to be one when we were in Colorado, but I didn't do any videos in Colorado.
Okay.
And so here we are. We're in Houston, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Every year for 5 years now, save last year,
Except for
COVID.
COVID,
Yes. We have done a brocation, and I'm going to tell the story real quick
For how it started?
For how it started, yeah.
All right.
It's kind of like so we'll go back. We're in Houston this year. We're going to an Astros game tomorrow. Going fishing
We always try to go to a baseball stadium
if we can.
if we can, wherever we're going, because that's on both of our bucket lists, right? Is we want to go to all 32 stadiums or 30. They're all 30 stadiums. I was having trouble remembering, but
Right.
anyways, so
So if there's one near, we're going to go.
Yeah.
Luckily for us, who are not Astros fans, they clinched tonight the AL West, so we don't have to watch them do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
however,
Anyway.
it would have been really nice to watch them lose when they were trying to clinch, but
Right. Well, yeah.
So,
Anyway.
the history of why we
The
started.
history. Thank you. In 2017, I was engaged coming out of Freed Hardman, and I had booked a ticket because she was not graduated yet. I had started my job in Henrietta. I booked a plane ticket to go see her. It didn't work out, and we ended up separating ways. But I was like, I got to go somewhere. I have this plane ticket, non-refundable,
Yeah,
and I was like, I'm going to Florida.
you can change the destination, but you can't
Correct.
get
So
your
I
flight.
changed the destination to Florida, and I was like, I'm leaving. See ya. And Dylan was like, I'm coming with you.
Gonna be a beach bum on the beach.
Right.
For
So
a
I was
week,
just gonna
and
yeah, exactly.
I couldn't
and-
let you like wither away on the
Correct.
beach.
And that's exactly what would have happened. And so Dylan, and I have a feeling that mom and dad probably were like, will you please go with him?
They didn't actually say anything.
Oh, well, there you go. Learn something every day. So we went to Florida, and then the second year we stayed in Dallas and had a fun day in Dallas.
Mhm.
And then the third year, which was 2 years ago, we went to Cincinnati. We saw the Ark in Kentucky, which that was really cool.
And Creation Museum.
Creation Museum, yes, in the Ark.
It was like both of those.
Yep.
And
And
then Louisville.
and then we went to Louisville Baseball Bat Factory, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, which I know that probably doesn't seem like fun to people who aren't baseball fans, but it was awesome.
Well, I was in a gift shop the other day, and there was a book that said 100 places you have to go before you die, and it was one of
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Louisville Baseball Bat Museum.
Okay.
Check it out. So now we're in Houston.
Yeah.
We do a Texas one every other time just to stay close because we're both in Texas.
Saves vacation.
It does save vacation time. So that's what we're doing right now. But
Yeah.
I have an obligation to my loyal fans, all 0 of you who are watching this live at 10:30 at night.
We had one second ago.
It's probably Zach. So, but anyway, this is live on YouTube, live on Patreon. It's all public, so it'll be seen eventually, shared eventually. But anyway, if you watched I'm gonna do a backward tease. I teased this today in the episode that I was gonna reveal what I thought Paul's thorn in the flesh was.
Okay.
And I'm teasing the episode now, so go watch that episode, and we lead up to the Paul's thorn in the flesh in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, I'm just going to read it, where Paul says,
Verse 7.
yeah, starting in verse 7, because of the therefore, so that I would not exalt myself, a thorn in the flesh was given to me, a messenger from Satan to torment me, so that I would not exalt myself. Concerning this, I pleaded with the Lord 3 times that it would leave me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. So, therefore, and he says, therefore I gladly boast. We go into more in that detail on the podcast. But this is kind of just for kicks and giggles.
Yeah.
It does not matter what the thorn in the flesh was.
It really is speculation because the Bible doesn't tell us exactly what the thorn in the flesh is. So whatever
We say.
is speculation.
So I told Dylan, prepare for this. I want to know what it is. I don't know what his is. He doesn't know what mine is. I really hope they're not the same.
I kind of hope so too, but you never know.
But we'll find out. So I'm going to let you start. You're the guest.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I believe Paul's thorn in the flesh is actually poor eyesight.
Oh.
Is that the same as yours?
It is not.
Okay, good. So I have a couple of reasons for that. Mainly coming out of the book of Galatians.
Right.
And for start, it's because of what is written there in 2 Corinthians 12. He's pleading that the Lord take away the thorn in the flesh from him. But he said to me in verse 9, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is perfected in weakness. Paul's poor eyesight, as I believe it may have been, is definitely a sign of great weakness, especially if he is trying to write letters to encourage the church. If he is trying to preach and to teach and to encourage people face to face, how can you do that with poor eyesight? You can do it, but God's power is really shown through weaknesses like that.
Sure.
So fast forward to Galatians. Some of the reasons I think that might be the case is because in Galatians chapter 4, he is. I'm going to start in verse 12 and just read it for you. But he says, "Brothers, I entreat you, become as I am, for I also have become as you are. You did me no wrong. You know it was because of a bodily ailment that I preached the gospel to you at first. And though my condition was a trial to you, you did not scorn or despise me, but received me as an angel of God, as Christ Jesus." So that's kind of what leads me to believe it had to have been something physical.
I agree with that.
But then he continues in verse 15. What then has become of your blessedness? For I testify to you that if possible, you would have gouged out your eyes and given them to me. Paul is talking about how loyal the church in Galatia was to him. That they were so thankful for Paul sharing the gospel to them. So wanting to give back. He's saying, you would have gouged out your eyes and given them to me. Leads me to believe Paul might have had a problem with his eyes of some sort.
Isn't there? Go ahead.
Well, I think I might be about to mention what you're
probably
the next thing you're going to mention. It's at the end of Galatians. It's in chapter 6, and I'm scrolling there. As he's concluding his letter to the church in Galatia, wrapping it up, in verse 11 of Galatians 6, he says, "See with what large letters I am writing to you with my own hand." Paul is wanting to show them that he cares so much about the church in Galatia that he is writing to them himself. He is not vocalizing the letter and having somebody else write it. And he also says, "See with what large letters I'm writing," indicating I've got to write large so I can see it. So, again, complete speculation, but I believe that may be what it is.
Well, I should have gone first because you kind of convinced me. But I'm still going to say mine.
You might convince me. I don't know.
I don't really have much evidence other than what we read here in 2 Corinthians. But I've always thought it was a speech impediment. A stutter of some kind.
I've heard that argument as well.
Yeah, and I had not heard the first part of your argument. I had only heard the second part with the large handwriting.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, until I put it in that context, I always read that part of scripture as I'm emphasizing this. I'm writing in all capitals, big letters, and that was like
see with what large letters.
Yes, I'm emphasizing this point.
Yeah.
But when it was tied with the thorn of the flesh, is different. So that's interesting. I hadn't heard that part though. I like that. I believe it's speech impediment because I think that was important to Paul.
Mm-hmm. To proclaim the gospel.
Well, correct. But also, it was almost like he specifically says it was just so that he would not exalt himself. Mm. And I think that's kind of interesting because a vision impediment, and this is, as far as we know, they didn't have glasses. It wasn't like Paul could walk around with glasses or contacts or have LASIK vision. You just had to go without vision. So, that's something that you can kind of hide for a while. Maybe he had it his whole life. But anyway, that is interesting. But I think it was that because, and maybe this is from my own struggle of when I get up to talk and when I'm in front of people, I have that tendency to say, this is something I'm doing. Mm. And so I almost wonder if Paul struggled with that. So God said, all right, here's a little stutter for you. And but I don't know.
And think about how frustrating that would have been that he pleaded with God to take it away. That as he's trying to proclaim the word, that God is has given him a speech impediment or has
Mhm.
allowed him to develop a speech impediment, whatever it may
Sure.
be.
Yeah.
And Paul's getting frustrated because he's like, I have a message I want to share and I just can't get it out.
Mhm.
So to back up your point, actually, because I have
Oh.
heard that argument as well. In Acts chapter 14,
He was prepared.
Paul. Well, I just thought about this as you were talking. But in Acts chapter 14, Paul and Barnabas are in Lystra, and as they're going through the town, the people started to call
Right.
Paul Zeus and Barnabas Hermes.
Other way.
Other way around.
No. Barnabas Zeus.
Yes, Barnabas they called Zeus and Paul Hermes because he was the chief speaker.
Right.
And so I think that just lends to the argument that Paul was the one going out to
Mhm.
vocalize the message. They called him Hermes because he was the one talking.
Correct.
Yeah. And so I think that just includes the point that he's out there speaking.
Yeah, he's out there and he had this pent up fire, and he describes it as a fire other places that he just wanted to get out.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting. The point behind all this is not what was right, but that what we talked about in the podcast is that we talked about that's not running away from your problems. As a matter of fact, Paul confronts his problems here. He asks God. He runs to God, like we talked about with Jonah today. He runs to God, and God, I need help with this, please. And God said, I'm sorry, that's not what's in your cards.
Well, as it says at the end of verse 9, therefore I will most gladly boast all the more about my weakness, so that Christ's power may reside in me.
Look what's happening in me. So
yeah,
that's just something to take from this. I usually go about 10 minutes. We're up about 12. So I appreciate everybody watching this later because everybody's asleep. It's almost 11 o'clock. So we're going to dip. We're getting up early to go fishing. So thank you for joining us, Dylan. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Shake your hand awkwardly. All right. Have a good night.